The New York Giants and Tampa Bay Buccaneers are both coming off byes and both have multi-game losing streaks in progress. Which team is likely to snap out of its misfortunes? We're going to talk about that and more coming up on a special crossover edition of Locked On Giants, Locked On Bucs, coming your way next.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
This episode of Crossover Thursday between the Locked On Giants and Locked On Bucs podcasts is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL, written in all lowercase letters, to win $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. PrizePicks, run your game. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in to the New York Giant fans, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneer fans. Welcome to this special crossover edition of Locked On Giants and Locked On Bucs. My name is Patricia Traynor. I'm the host of Locked On Giants, and he is James Yarcho. He is the host of Locked On Bucs, and we are so happy to have you with us here on Crossover Thursday. And on today's show, we're going to take a look at the Giants and the Bucs, two teams that are stuck in a multi-game losing streak. The Bucs 4 games, the Giants 5 games, and each team looking to snap that losing streak, each team coming off a bye week. Incidentally, the Giants ranked 27th all-time in games after a bye, the Bucs 28th. So a lot of similarities, James, between these two teams to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a tale of two different paths, right? You have one team looking to get back in the playoff hunt with a lot of key players returning, and you have a team that's changing quarterbacks and kind of a surprise move at that, given which quarterback they chose. So yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Absolutely. And on today's show, we're going to talk about the Bucs. We'll get the key stories, the latest updates. Then we will talk about the Giants, who, as James mentioned, have a quarterback change. So I'll tell you all about that. And then we will look at the keys to victory. Which team has the competitive edge? This is going to be an interesting matchup between a very good Bucs offense and a shaky type of defense against a Giants offense in transition. So a very interesting matchup. But James, let's start off with what's new in Tampa Bay. What do people need to know going into this game that you think is most important?
Yeah, I think the big story is some key players returning for the Buccaneers. And the biggest name, of course, is going to be Mike Evans. Mike Evans went down with a hamstring injury against Baltimore at the start of their 4-game losing streak. They didn't have him for the following 3 games leading into the bye week, but he is back now, which is going to be a huge boost because in that same game, the Bucs also lost Chris Godwin, who at the time was leading the NFL in receptions for a first down, yards after catch. He was tied atop the league in touchdowns. He was arguably the best receiver in the NFL in that Cooper Kupp role for Liam Cohen's offense, and to lose both of them in the same game was devastating. But you also mentioned kind of the shaky defense that the Buccaneers had. There's no doubt that you're 100% right about that, but they have Jamel Dean returning now. So they're getting one of their starting corners back. They had been using an undrafted rookie by the name of Tyreek Funderburg. They had used a special teamer in Josh Hayes. And although Jamel Dean had his struggles before he got injured, he's certainly a big upgrade over what they had. And then there's the return of Mike Edwards, who was a big part of this secondary during the Bucs Super Bowl run, during the division winning team the following year. And then he plays for the Chiefs last year, wins the Super Bowl with them, then goes to the Buffalo Bills, gets cut, spends a week with the Tennessee Titans. Now he's back with Todd Bowles, where he really played his absolute best. He had a minimal fraction of the impact with the Chiefs, Bills, and Titans that he did with the Bucs. So you're looking to him to kind of provide a little bit of a spark and a little bit of energy to a defense that has been struggling this season. So 3 big names for the Buccaneers will be back on the field this Sunday, and they need it. They have to go on a huge run here if they're going to make some noise and try to get back into the postseason picture.
James, you mentioned the return of Mike Evans, and it sounds like his absence kind of coincided with this downward slide. But what is your expectation as far as how much Evans will play, assuming he's going to play on Sunday? And, how does the offense change with him as opposed to without him in the lineup?
I think he's going to have a full workload. Reportedly, he was close to returning against the 49ers, decided against it, got those extra couple of weeks to really come back strong with those hamstring injuries, those soft tissues. If you come back too soon, you can re-aggravate it. It can cause even more problems, and the Bucs need him down the stretch. So I expect him to get a full, if not very close to full workload. And I think what you're going to see with Mike Evans is, of course, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL and has been for the last decade. He's kind of overlooked because of the star power of some other guys, but he's a guy that's going to win those one-on-one matchups. He's going to win when he's being double teamed. He's going to win the contested catch balls. He's one of the best red zone threats that the NFL has to offer. So what I'm really interested in seeing, and you can, talk about this when we start looking at the Giants side of things, but how are the Giants going to cover him? Because, the Bucs, even without Mike and Chris, they were still putting up points. They took the Chiefs to overtime in Kansas City. They put up over, 25 points against the Falcons. They put up 20 against the Niners, and they were doing it with Cade Otton and Sterling Shepard and Trey Palmer and those types of guys. So how are the Giants going to play Mike, and are they going to force Baker to look to Sterling Shepard to beat them, to Trey Palmer, to Jalen McMillan, or is Evans going to get his opportunities to make some big plays, which he'll create his own opportunities? We know that, but is it going to be a breakout? Is he going to have, 9, 10 targets in this game as he makes his return? And I think a lot of that is going to be dictated by how the Giants play him and how many of their defensive resources they're going to move over to his side to ensure that if the Bucs win this game, they are doing it without Mike Evans beating him.
James, you started off by talking about the guys who are returning, but are there any guys that are on the injury report that maybe you're not feeling as good about and you wish you were feeling maybe a little bit better about their chances of being available?
My biggest concern with that is Zion McCollum. Zion McCollum was, the top rated corner by Pro Football Focus for the majority of the season so far this year. It's his first full year as a starter. He's been absolutely fantastic, got injured against the 49ers. Now going up against a guy like Malik Neighbors, you would, if you're a Bucs fan, you'd rather see Zion, worrying about Neighbors than Jamel Dean. Him being off the field just continues this cycle of injured corners. They cannot stay healthy in the secondary. So I'm not super confident that Zion is going to be able to go, which is going to hurt the defense quite a bit. But other than that, Greg Gaines, didn't participate in practice on Wednesday, but he has had some days this year where he's missed practice, been a game time decision, been able to go, and he's more of a depth piece than somebody that's far and away as important to the defense as Zion McCollum is.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the New York Giants have a new starting quarterback. I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about the effect of on the locker room, and do the Giants have a chance? And plus, what other changes might we see? So that's coming up on this special crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Bucs, right after this. Listen up, renters. Ever feel like you're stuck in this loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air? It's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards. That's where Built Rewards comes in. Built is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent. Every month you pay your rent and watch the Built points roll in. Use points to jet off on a dream vacation. Put your points towards a flight or hotel stay with over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties. You can also use your points to book fitness studio classes, redeem them towards a future rent payment. They're designed to meet your lifestyle. Pay rent hassle-free through the Built Rewards app. Your rent game just got a major upgrade. Built points have been consistently ranked the highest value point currency by the Point Guys and Bankrate. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points with your rent payments today. Hey, everybody, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to get started with $150 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back to this crossover edition. Locked On Giants, Locked On Bucs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers visit the New York Giants on Sunday. Both teams coming out of a bye. Both teams looking to snap multi-game losing streaks. The Bucs with 4, the Giants with 5. And he, of course, is James Yarcho, the host of Locked On Bucs. I'm Patricia Train, a host of Locked On Giants. And James, the Giants have a new quarterback. All the weeks that Giant fans, all the weeks that the Giant fans were screaming for Daniel Jones to get benched, it has finally happened. Daniel Jones now basically, technically the third string quarterback, but in practice, he was like the fourth string guy behind even a practice squatter. Tim Boyle, who the team signed this year, but it's going to be the Tommy DeVito show. And this is going to be interesting, James, because last year, Tommy DeVito was pressed into action, I think, earlier than the coaches and anybody expected he would be. And that was because of injuries. So, DeVito brought a little bit of that magic, only to have it run out towards the end against Ross Jackson's Saints of all teams. And so now it's like, okay, what convinced the Giants that DeVito gives them the juice, as Coach Dable says. And it's because I think, and we talked to Drew Lock about this, we talked to DeVito about this, Dable spoke about this. This is year 2 in the system for DeVito. Lock is new to the system. He had never played in this type of, New England, pound and ground type of system. He's always been more of a West Coast type of guy. So he came in, and then of course he had the injury in the summertime that set him back a little bit. And, there's some questions as to whether he actually ever caught up. So they're going with DeVito because DeVito, this is year 2 in the system for him. They say, and when I mean they, the coaches, we don't get to see the entire practice, that DeVito is much more polished in terms of his footwork, which was a little shaky last year, in terms of his post-snap processing, his reads, his confidence, which he's always had, just a totally different looking quarterback. But we'll see if indeed he is the guy that can help the Giants get back on the winning track. Because here's the thing, DeVito is not quite the athlete Daniel Jones was. And, you follow this trend with the quarterbacks. A few weeks ago, Dable said that Daniel Jones gives us the best chance to win. Now, all of a sudden, he doesn't give you the best chance to win. Or then he benches Daniel Jones and puts Drew Lock in, and he says, oh, we were hoping for a spark. So they're kind of all over the place with this quarterback situation. And, you kind of just floating around the locker room today, talking to the receivers, talking to, some of the other guys to get a feel for this. There's a lot of, guys who are just not really sure what exactly is the rhyme and reason here, pointing out that they lose as a team, they win as a team. But you know what? Everybody is backing DeVito. Nobody's, looking at him like, you stole Daniel Jones's job. Drew Lock acting very professionally, even though you can honestly say that he got, screwed out of the opportunity. So just a very interesting thing. And I think one of the X factors we have to take a look at in this game is, are the Giants going to come out with the energy that Brian Dable is looking for after what has basically been an emotional start to their second half of the season?
Yeah, and DeVito was like the NFL world darling for a little while last year, and everybody had a lot of fun watching him play. And I guess you're trying to capture lightning in a bottle for a second time with this type of move. And I get it. You know, they don't want Daniel Jones to get hurt because of the contract issues and all that. And it's like, you know what? You know, like you said, it's his second year in the system. Let's give the kid a shot. And you know, who knows? Maybe he does bring that spark. He does bring that fire, and all of a sudden the Giants are moving up and down the field a little bit easier. One of the things that a lot of Bucs fans and myself and some others have looked at were the number of times that DeVito got sacked. So I'm curious to hear kind of your take on this. You know, 9 appearances last year, 6 starts. He was sacked 37 times. I went through it, and of all his appearances, there were only 3 times where he was sacked less than 5 times, you know, out of those 9 appearances. So was this a DeVito issue where he was holding on to the ball too long, not being able to get through his reads or process fast enough? Or was this an offensive line issue where he just wasn't having the time? And, you know, how do you think that's going to kind of play out this weekend? Is it going to be more of the same where there's going to be opportunities to bring him down in the backfield? Or do you think things are a little bit better than they were at that time last year?
Yeah, I think it was a combination, James. I mean, the offensive line last year was just absolutely a mess. But that being said, you had a rookie quarterback who, as I said, nobody even thought would make it to the 53-man roster, let alone have to start games. But here he was, you know, being thrown out there. Now, were there instances when DeVito was responsible for the sacks he took? Absolutely. There were times when he just held the ball too long, or he took the safe route, or figured, you know, I'll take the sack rather than risk a turnover. So that was absolutely true, as was the case, the offensive line not being very good last year with all the different combinations and just an absolute mess. This year, the offensive line is a little bit better than it was last year in pass protection. Now, they lost Andrew Thomas earlier in the year, their left tackle. Jermaine Illuminor has since flipped over from the right side to the left side. Evan Neal is back in. Evan Neal made his first appearance, his first start 2 weeks ago when the Giants played the Panthers in Germany, and he looked pretty good. So there is optimism moving forward that Evan Neal can get the job done, and Illuminor played decently on the left side as well. And then, of course, they have the tight ends, which provide the help depending on what side they need. So the offensive line is better. What we don't know just yet, because we're not allowed to see the full team practice, how is DeVito going to respond to pressure? Like I said, at times last year, he did hold the ball too long, took the sack rather than risk throwing it up for grabs and having it turned over. And he did a great job, by the way, protecting the ball. I don't think he had very many turnovers, if I recall correctly. So, you know, that was the trade-off with him, but it is year 2 in the system. You know, the speed of the game, he had to get used to that as well. They've been doing what they can to simulate that in practice. And the hope is that, you know, this time around, he's going to be a lot more polished and enable Dable, who is the play caller, to do a little bit more with him now under center than he maybe was able to do last year.
Yeah. And it's certainly going to be, you know, if you're going to make this move, this is the right time to do it. Right. Yeah. And in fact, you and I, before we sat down to record, you know, going back to last week, we kind of talked about how this could be a situation that you guys were looking at. So it'll be interesting to see how he navigates that. And I'm sure Bucs fans are disappointed to hear that the offensive line is a little bit better, because they were hoping to get that sack game going for the Buccaneers. It has not been great in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. But then the other thing that you know, I'm curious about, and I kind of touched on it earlier, was, you know, this is a Giants defense that has gone up against Terry McLaurin and Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb, and you know, they've had their ups and downs. How do you feel they're going to attack Mike Evans coming off of that injury? And are they going to make sure that he's doubled at all times, and they're going to force Sterling Shepard to be a hero in New York? Or, you know, how do you see that kind of dynamic playing out?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if Sterling Shepard has a big game, because that just seems to be with former Giants coming into MetLife Stadium. We saw it with Saquon Barkley. And look, you know, Shepard was always one of my favorites, still is. As a matter of fact, I was telling one of the receivers today, I said, yeah, you know, I never go over to the visiting locker. locker room. I said, I might have to do it this week because I absolutely adore Shep. He is just the tremendous. But to answer your question, what the Giants have been doing is they've been assigning Deonte Banks to the opposing team's number one receiver, and he hasn't had a whole lot of help. Now, Banks, there have been questions about his effort. He's run into some situations where he's been benched because of his effort, where he's been called out by the coaches. So if Banks basically shows up and plays to his ability, I'm not saying it's going to be a walk in the park, but he's going to give himself a fighting chance against Mike Evans. I do think, if the Giants are want to slow Evans down, and because again, you can't stop him, you've got to get physical with him. You've got to bump him coming off the line of scrimmage. You've got to try and disrupt his route. You've got to, I think, on certain downs, you've got to try and bracket cover him because he will win those battles. He's a big, physical receiver, and going up against some of these smaller cornerbacks, it's a mismatch.
Yeah, and Evans is one of those deceptively fast guys. He never looks like he's moving fast because he's just got such a long stride. But yeah, especially when you talk about a size mismatch, that's when he's going to start to try to use that body to gain an advantage, especially on some of the shorter to intermediate routes. So I was real curious how you kind of saw that playing out in terms of, are they going to try to go one-on-one with him, or, is it going to suck away some resources and open things up for the other guys? So it's the chess matches that are always the most fun to watch. And we'll see how the tone gets set early on.
Well, if they're smart, they'll double them up, but we'll, of course, see. All right, coming up next, we're going to talk about the keys to each team's victory and have final thoughts for you on this crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Bucs. Don't go anywhere. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life gets so busy sometimes that we forget to say thank you to the people in our lives that make it so much better. But there's another person we don't thank enough, ourselves. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we are trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that's not always easy. That's where therapy can help with learning to pace yourself and to cope with all that life throws at you. And if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Fill out a questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you find your assigned therapist isn't a match, switch at any time for no additional charge. Don't skip therapy day. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon to get 10% off your first month. All right, everybody, welcome back to Crossover Thursday, Locked On Giants, Locked On Bucs. The New York Giants host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday, 1 o'clock. Yay, I love those 1 o'clock games.
Me
MetLife
too.
Stadium. The return of Sterling Shepard, who is now with the Bucs, and of course Baker Mayfield is coming in. Mike Evans is coming in. This is a very good Bucs team that despite the fact that they're stuck in a losing streak, they can snap out of it at any given time. And James, what are your keys to this weekend's game for the Bucs?
Yeah, well, and don't forget Ben Bredesen's coming back too.
Yeah, Ben Bredesen,
it'll be a homecoming for him. So for the Bucs in this one, to me, it's pretty simple. You attack DeVito from all angles. You give the ball to Bucky Irving, which is not someone we have talked about yet, and then create chaos. So with DeVito, this Bucs pass rush has been inconsistent at best. You have Yaya Diaby, you have Vita Vea, you have Levante David, Kalijah Cansey, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka has shown minor flashes. Chris Braswell has really stepped up each and every week and gotten progressively better. You have the opportunity to cause problems for DeVito, who is a guy that, as we've talked about, got sacked a lot last season when he was on the field. You have to be able to get back there and get him on the ground, set the Giants up to have, be behind the sticks, have those long down and distance situations where then you can really pin your ears back and just send the house. a guy that I have on Locked On Bucs every week who works for the CBS affiliate down in Tampa said that they need to treat this game the same way they do when they play the Eagles, in the way that Todd Bowles attacks Jalen Hurts. And if there's anything that Todd Bowles does better than anyone, it's attack Jalen Hurts. Treat this the exact same way and really just set the tone from the jump. As far as the next one, give the ball to Bucky Irving. He has been the best pure running back for this team this year, the draft pick out of Oregon. The Buccaneers are one of two teams in the NFL to have two running backs with over 500 all-purpose yards and 4 touchdowns each. But Rashad has been more effective in the passing game. We need more carries out of Bucky Irving, control the tempo, control the clock, and that's going to start to open things up down the field. And then creating chaos. I've talked about it a lot on my show. The addition of Mike Edwards, Jamel Dean coming back. Now, all of a sudden, Antoine Winfield Jr. can go back to being that everything defensive weapon for Todd Bowles, where he's coming in on blitzes. He's baiting the quarterback into mistakes. He's able to play against the run. He's a little more free to roam around and do what he does best, and that is create takeaways. So in addition to the pass rush and the pressure, now all of a sudden you have a guy roaming back there that can create takeaways and just really mess with DeVito's rhythm, mess with his timing, mess with everything. But that's how the Bucs are going to get a road victory that they have to have every week now. Is a must win for the Bucs if they're going to stay in contention for the NFC South. That's how they're going to get it done.
Boy, I wish I were talking about the Giants staying in contention for the NFC East. It's been so long. It really has. But look, let's start one game at a time. Obviously, the Giants, coming off the shockwave of the quarterback change, I look for the Giants to start this game. I mentioned earlier in the show how the Bucs have had a shaky defense, both pass defense because of their injuries, and their run defense hasn't been exactly, lighting the world on fire, nor has the Giants for that matter. But we're talking Giants here. So that being said, if I'm the Giants, I maybe try and loosen things up a little bit, get into a rhythm with the running game. Tyrone Tracy, the rookie, has been absolutely, a godsend for this team. I'm not saying that he's Saquon Jr. or on the same level as Saquon Barkley, but Tyrone Tracy, for a 5th-round draft pick, good vision, good quickness, moves the pile, has done a really good job. I think he's had 3 100 rushing yard games. Let the running game set the tone here. That'll give DeVito maybe, allow DeVito to get into a rhythm, just kind of, get a feel for the offense and how the defense is playing them. And then from there, you can start to open things up. You're going to have Malik Neighbors, who is probably going to go against, I would think, Dean, if he's healthy. I think he's your number 1 cornerback. So, get Malik Neighbors on some one-on-one deep shots. Wan'Dale Robinson, have him working underneath like he always does. And I think you're also going to see Jalen Hyatt, a guy who we didn't really see a whole lot of the first 10 games. Well, actually, I take that back. The first 9 games, we saw more of him in week 10 because Darius Slayton was injured. Darius Slayton is expected to be back. He was in the concussion protocol. Actually, he still is, but he's in the final stages. But I think you're going to see him potentially get some more reps and some more targets than what we have seen in the past. And then defensively, the Giants are getting back Kayvon Thibodeau, or at least they will be. Kayvon Thibodeau felt good. He told us today he feels good coming off, his wrist injury that he had, the surgery, and he expects to be back. So now the Giants have all of a sudden 3 productive pass rushers in their lineup. In Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Azeez Ojulari, who's been a nice little surprise for them. So it'll be fun to see how defensive coordinator Shane Bowen mixes those guys together to get pressure on Baker Mayfield, because like any other quarterback, you pressure him, he's going to make a mistake. And the Giants need turnovers. They haven't had a whole lot of those. They are at a negative right now in the turnover ratio. They got to turn that negative into a plus.
Yeah, and Tristan Wirfs left the game against the 49ers with that knee injury. He was limited on Wednesday, but I believe Todd Bowles said that he was trending to be a game time decision. If Justin School is the starting left tackle, and now all of a sudden you have Kayvon Thibodeau coming back, that could create some problems. Justin School struggled a lot when Luke Gedicke went down earlier in the year, and he was playing on the right side. So now that opens up an opportunity for sure for the New York Giants and my wife's favorite NFL player, Kayvon Thibodeau, to cause some damage in the backfield for the Buccaneers. So it'll be, and then of course familiar face Brian Burns. You know, the Bucs dealt with him time and time again. The last time he played the Bucs, though, he threw a punch and got ejected from the game. So might have to watch that temper a little bit this time around.
I think he'll be fine. So, all right, folks, that is going to do it for this crossover edition, Locked On Giants, Locked On Bucs. Again, he is James Yarcho. You can follow him on Locked On Bucs. He will have a new show for you tomorrow as we get into the weekend for the big matchup. I'm Patricia Traynor, the host of Locked On Giants. And I will have much more on the Giants quarterback situation, including some new stuff that I was able to find out from the locker room, as well as just an overall temperature check of the locker room. So that's going to be my Friday show, along with your questions, those of you who have sent in questions. So hope you will check that out, as well as Locked On Bucs and all of our Locked On programs here. For James Yarcho, I'm Patricia Traynor. Again, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on our respective channels tomorrow.